What's up, everybody? Welcome to the Operators Podcast. We have my good friend Evan. He started a company. He sold the company. The company he sold to went public, and now he is doing another brand. He's a science-backed founder. So he was a scientist for a decade before deciding to get into the world of consumer. We talk about the alpha in hiring scientists and the future of science-backed brands. I think it's probably one of the coolest things that's going to come out in the next couple of years. There's a lot of cultural changes in the science world. Jason isn't here. Jason is in Aruba. He's on tax evasion right now. So we'll see if he ever makes it back to the pod. No, he's golfing. We love the guy. He's welcome back whenever.
So let's talk about Fulfill for a minute. My buddy Roman Khan, who's an original Big Dog, the Big Dog chat was the inspiration of the Operators podcast. Roman tweeted about Fulfill just sort of out of nowhere. He implemented Fulfill at one of his companies, and it was just blown away by how smooth the implementation was, how robust the product is, how committed the team at Fulfill was. I mean, that's super important too, like the commitment of the team and the commitment to excellence. As a tech investment banker and as a lawyer, I've seen tons of tech businesses in my life, and I it's funny because I was particularly excited when I met Fulfill long before they became a sponsor of the pod and long before we even implemented Fulfill. I was like, this really solves a problem. This is a piece of tech that solves a problem, and let's see if it actually works. And it's become a huge integral part of our system. It really is very much our ERP at HexClad, and I'm just really proud of the fact that Fulfill continues to deliver to people. I probably should have cut them a check back in the day because I think they have a really great business. And so shout out and kudos to the team at Fulfill for just doing a great job, for Roman, who's a Big Dog buddy of the pod and consistently doing great work for HexClad.
All right, welcome to the Operators Podcast. We've got a great episode for you today. It is brought to you, as always, by our great sponsors, Fulfill, Northbeam, Postscript, Rich Panel, and Saras. Let's get after it.
Welcome to the podcast. Evan's awesome. Very, very funny guy. Has a impressive track record. And most people have never, in our sphere, have heard of what you've done. I think is actually one of the best outcomes. So give us the Evan story, and then we're going to ask a bunch of questions. So we're just going to grill you like a deposition for the next hour. Are you cool with that?
Sure. Yeah. I'm super excited to be here. I watched the pod a lot. Congratulations on the launch of Trevi, or the idea of it. I think it's super smart. I was talking to my wife about it. I was like, it's so smart to get the returning revenue, and it just makes sense. Like, it's just such a perfect product to launch.
I'm going to have to ask you some questions offline because, man, I'm trying to wrap my mind around how different the model is when you're on subscriptions and consumable products. Honestly, probably the most fun part about it's been really mentally kind of stimulating, challenging, of just learning a new thing,
Yeah, no, it's fun, and it's different. Like, I've noticed companies sometimes struggle when it's not like first purchase profitable as a product, and sometimes you have those really, really long LTVs that make it worth. Like Hims was like $600 CACs, but they print money right now, so.
We had one of the craziest stats that I can share from so far is right now, people that purchase, that spend we have like kind of a try before you buy flow, but people who purchase, it's something like 50% just go ahead and subscribe, which I was not prepared for that number. So I'm modeling this out, and I'm like, so I'm modeling out something where this is really successful with a 0.8 ROAS. And I'm like, that just, my brain has to like totally rewire. I'm like, no, 0.8 ROAS, there's no way that that's really successful. And it's like, Sean's been talking about this for a while. Like they'll spend until they get to 0.5 last click ROAS. And, in simple modern, you'll go bankrupt trying to think about it that way. So anyway, it's really interesting when you got user values that are hundreds of dollars or thousands of dollars.
Yeah, Mike,
especially in the beginning. You don't have to repeat. You have no idea what it looks like, and it's hard to model too.
Like the fog of war early on is so fun when you don't know what's going on and you're trying to make sense of it, and that's kind of where we're at right now.
Yeah, the one thing I wanted to highlight is welcome to the world of consumer subscription, where your churn rate's going to be 10 to 15% per month. Like
It's
it is
wild.
Yeah, not uncommon to churn 100% of customers in a year, just because it's so different than B2B consumer or sorry, B2B subscription, where like I'll never leave Slack. I've paid for Slack for fucking 6 years. I'm going to pay for them for another 6 years. But like consumers' taste changes so much. They move, they pause credit cards, whatever. So dude, please give us a couple of months worth of data and then share that. Like what does the churn look like on something like Trevi? Exciting.
Yeah, I'm excited to share. And, you know, it's like, I've also been more acutely aware of how ballsy it is to actually do this in public. It'd be so much easier to just be like, we're going to quietly launch this. And when like things are going awesome, then I'm going to talk about it. But I also think like that's the spirit of the podcast is about building things and that's, you know, it's not linear, it's hard, it's challenging. And so I think right now it's living right in that range where it's really hard and there's a lot of stuff to figure out, but it's also, there's enough promising stuff that I'm really optimistic. And it's kind of, I think for entrepreneurs, I think that's the sweet spot where you're like, I feel super challenged, but I feel like I'm making some progress. Because if it's too easy, we get bored. And if it's too hard, it's like, I'm an idiot. What am I doing with my life? But it's like, right, that narrow, you know, place right in between is what you're going for. Anyway, Evan, this episode's about you. It's not about me. Let's hear, I want to hear the story.
Thanks, guys. Again, huge fan of the pod. My name's Evan. I'm a former academic. So I did a PhD after college. I was a good student. And then after my PhD, I did something called a postdoc, which is like, it's another PhD, but they pay you very, very small amounts of money to work for some dude.
It's basically indentured servitude.
That's right.
Is that a good way to describe it? Okay, good.
That's right. And I thought I was going to be a professor, like, you know, probably for the last 5 years in academia. And the pandemic hit. And they basically told everybody that wasn't working on like COVID to go back home. And we were working on like different kinds of treatments for cancer, different kinds of treatments for different diseases, but not COVID. So we went back home and I was just so bored. I don't know if you guys were probably very busy during COVID, because I know for e-commerce, it was a nice time. But I was so bored. And so I was calling my friends, and very fortunately or unfortunately, a lot of my friends went into banking. And so I don't know if you guys know this trope, but like a lot of the bankers, when they hit like 30 years old or around there, they get into lifting a lot. And they like, you know, they buy into this stuff. Like they're like, you got to take all the supplements, like everything. And I over and over again, I was like, hey guys, I know how to like find things and how to discover new things. So, like, what do you think I should do? And everybody was like, God, dude, like if you've ever worked out before, if you've taken this thing called creatine, it's like this new thing on the block. Like everybody's doing it.
New.
New, yeah. No, they were like, dude, I just discovered this thing. Like, I'm a genius. And I was like, okay. And he was like, you can lift twice as much. And I was like, okay. I looked it up. It's like from the 1910s or something. It's super, super old thing. And it comes with like some side effects, right? If you don't drink enough water, it causes like kidney damage, a bunch of things that like potentially could be bad. And so they were like, you can find a better version of it. And so the minute I got back in the lab, I talked to my professor and I was like, hey, I want to like try this. And my lab had done this research project where they had used artificial intelligence to find new antibiotics, which is cool, right? We're going to run out of antibiotics in like 50 years or something. Like our antibiotics will no longer be effective on bacteria. So having a new way of finding them is great. And I was like, hey, boss.
Can you pause on that, Evan? Because most people don't know this. Like, this is actually one of the more mind-blowing stats that, or like just realities that my understanding is that basically antibiotics in that age kind of was ushered in with penicillin. Mm-hmm. And that, I mean, you know, we're talking 100 years, less than 100 years ago. And that within 50 years, we may be back out of the antibiotic age because of resistance in a number of things. And most people are just totally unaware. This is why when you ask your doctor to give you antibiotics and they think it's viral, like they really don't want to do it. So can you just educate a little bit?
Of course. Yeah. So antibiotic resistance is probably the most, I guess, potent example of evolution. So if you think of a bacteria, which causes all these diseases and, you know, all these issues before, right? People were dying from before. The antibiotic generally works by like disrupting it in some way. So the old ones disrupted the walls. So like if you think of a bacteria is like a sack of stuff in the middle of it, and it's like a little organism, a little sack of stuff. The old one used to like disrupt the walls. And so the bacteria over the years, right, if you think about it, like every time you expose one bacteria to an antibiotic, it's a mini evolution experiment. So as it accumulates mutations, like we do, it accumulates it over hundreds of years, decades, and it's accumulating mutations, and then some of them will find a way out of it. For example, for the ones that break down the walls, the bacteria found a way to like change the way that their walls work. And so it's slowly finding a way to evolve fast, and it's random luck. It's like, you just do it billions of times, trillions of times, and you're going to find this stuff. And so the idea is we only have like, handful of approved antibiotics. And in probably a decade, we're going to meet bacteria that are resistant to all of them, because eventually you just accumulate all these things and we'll run out. And the idea behind like the 50-year thing is our pace of discovering antibiotics is not fast enough at dealing with their ability to evolve. And that's a problem.
Are you optimistic that the AI, like that you're going to be able to use technology to discover new antibiotics?
Yeah.
Is there general optimism, just so that we don't leave people depressed and wanting to,
I mean, this is a big area of study, and my former boss has got like tens of billions of dollars to do this. AI is really useful because before we used to screen and this will be really relevant. Before we used to be able to screen like tens of thousands of compounds of chemical entities to find antibiotics, and that was slow. Like you had to do it by hand or you had to do it by robots, super super slow. And AI has the capability of like screening billions. Huh. So there's billions of molecules out there. So we can find, it's within the realm of possibility, we have like thousands, if not tens of thousands of antibiotics available to us in the next 50 years. So hopefully we're able to keep up with this issue. There's also a bunch of other ways for us to deal with bacteria. So there are natural predators of bacteria they're viruses called phages. So they eat they reproduce inside bacteria. There's plenty of ways to deal with them. So I'm optimistic. Yeah.
And Evan, what does this have to do with e-commerce? So let's tie it back together.
Okay, so we did the trial run, and saw pretty amazing results. So this technique of using AI to screen millions of molecules to find things was very effective. And I was telling my wife, I was like, hey, I want to start a company off this because I think that academia takes too long to impact the world. And that was my thought. And she was like, do not do this, Evan. We will be very poor.
Smart woman.
Will fail. And my wife's a really smart woman. Okay, so she works in pharma. She's got a PhD in biology, and she's very, very smart. So she was like, she brought me this little bottle, and she was like, I have a PhD in biology, and I bought this little bottle, and it was like a $300 serum. Okay, and I was making $50K a year then, so I was like, we need to talk about like money management first. It was very interesting. This little bottle, they said like, we discovered this deep sea secret ingredient, and I was like, weird, like that. Okay, cool. Like, and then they put it into a serum. There's like not that many results on how well it works, but there's these women all over the world that are buying it. And she was like, you can discover probably something better using this technique, using this like AI augmented technique. And so we went into beauty. So we started a company called Revela. It was, and I know you guys are mostly bootstrapped and amazing. I didn't know what that meant. And all my friends were doing VC-backed companies. So I raised some funding and I was like, I'm going to do like AI discovered beauty molecules. And then we did discovery for a year and we launched a brand a year after. So this was, I guess, early 2022 when we launched a brand. And it was interesting. We were selling, we started off with hair. So like when women, start losing hair, there's not a lot of products designed for them. So we discovered a molecule to specifically help with that. Yeah.
And so Evan, so you do research for a year. So you have this idea.
Yeah.
Before that, you got bros eating creatine, being like, yo, we're getting jacked. Help us get more jacked.
Yeah.
Your wife spending habits lead you to want to launch a beauty brand. You discover some stuff. You're in research for a year, and then you launch, the next year, and then very quickly you get acquired. Is that correct?
Yeah, that's right. Yeah.
So let's talk about that story. So you're running this brand, you're acquiring customers, you're a science-backed beauty brand. It's probably like 2022 at this point. What makes you want to sell the business? How'd those conversations happen?
Of course. I don't know if I watched All In podcast a lot, and and you guys. So these are my two top podcasts. So when we sold the business, it was like late 2022, early 2023. We were at about $1 million a month, right? So we were not like super micro, but we weren't small. And the last 2 months before we sold, we were actually profitable. We were making like 25% cash flow margins. It was decent business. But the All In podcast was based, I don't know if you guys remember this. They were like, it is over. Like, it is depression time. So I was like, oh, I sell a very expensive hair serum, and that's probably not good. So, I talked to investors, and I was like, hey, I either want to raise a funding round so we'll be okay, or, actually, we weren't actually looking to be acquired. So I was trying to raise this funding round, and we had some potential people. One of the people that we were talking to was Al Catterton. So they do a lot of like private equity in the consumer space. And as I was talking to him, he was like, hey, I know this company called Oddity. We invested in them, and you would love talking to the CEO. And so I talked to Iran, and we had a couple conversations. He was like, join us, and you'll love it here. And I really bought in. And let me go through why. So when we were doing this company, we were selling female products, and nobody believed we could sell this product. Like, nobody in the world was like, you know how to sell products to women or like anybody because you're a scientist. Like, what do scientists know about selling products? And I was like, yeah, but like, it kind of feels a little bit like what you guys do for performance marketing is basically science. Like, you have hypotheses, you place bets on those hypotheses, and then some of them work and some of them don't, right? And you test different creative, and you're testing different things, and all of it is just a bunch of experiments after one after another. And we figured it out because it was basically like doing experiments.
Yeah, Evan, and if you
just
can
describe degen gambling as science.
Yeah. if you can,
wait. Okay, so let me clarify. That is science. Is like,
yeah.
If you don't know what science is, if you've never been in a lab, like scientists basically are like, I really believe in this one thing. I think this is going to happen, so I'm going to do this experiment. But the best ones run like 4 or 5 in a row. So like they will parallel 4 or 5 different ideas in a row. And then like, if you're really, really good, you get 2 or 3 of them to work. And if you're not that good, you get 1 out of like 20 to work. And that's what you publish, and that's what you do science of. It's basically gambling.
I love that you're saying this, because this is one of my big things about entrepreneurship. I think entrepreneurship is totally a scientific method. I have a hypothesis about how the world works. I design an experiment. I learn from that experiment. I adjust my hypothesis. I run another experiment. You're just in this loop over and over again. And it can be true with marketing, but it can also be true with product or a bunch of different other things. And when I'm talking to students about entrepreneurship, I'm like, you actually do this already in a lot of other areas. Like dating is the scientific process, right? And there's all these areas of your life, but just for some reason, people, when they come to entrepreneurship, they think it's some kind of weird, unique thing that works totally different. But you nailed it. It's just that exact thought process over and over and over on repeat, where you're trying to learn and update the working model you have in your head of how people in the world behaves.
Mm-hmm. When I was starting this company, a bunch of people tried to talk me out of it because they were like, scientists can't make good founders. Like, this is not a thing. And the more that I've seen this, I think every good founder like you guys would make great scientists. And I think true great scientists would make good founders. It's kind of the same thing. Like, great students most of the time don't make great scientists, and great students most of the time don't make good founders because they're so used to there being an answer, right? Like, they're so used to being like, I'm going to do a bunch of research and like, it's just going to work. And the worst scientists I know and the worst founders I know do like a year of prep. And then they're like they're like reading every paper, and they're like thinking through everything, and they're like, oh, I got it. And then they try the experiment, it doesn't work. And they're like, oh, now I'm depressed. And the best entrepreneurs are like, I'm just going to do it. I'm just going to launch things, and like eventually something's going to work. And they have conviction in that. And they know that like failure is just one step, and you're going to keep going until it works. And
so I want to build one more thought on top of that about when really good entrepreneurs, one of the ways they think differently, or at least, I don't know, this is true of me. I'd love to hear the three of you, and if you're the same way, is that you basically have a thing and you're like, I think this is going to work. I look at the world and I think if we did X, if we put it at this price, if we ran this flow or whatever, I think this is going to work. And then you try it and it doesn't, right? Your hypothesis is wrong. I think strong founders and probably strong scientists are like, great. Then that's actually helpful, because now I understand something about the world that I didn't understand before. Obviously, I was thinking about the world in a way that's not the way that it is. I think normies kind of get real discouraged if they have a theory and it doesn't prove to be true. It's just like, oh, well, I was wrong, so I guess I can't do this. And I think real entrepreneurs, great scientists actually think the exact opposite. So for me, anytime my working model of our business or the world gets broken, I get a data point that's like totally different than anything I'm expecting. I get excited because I see an opportunity to really grow in my understanding of what's going on. I don't know. Anyway, it's just an observation about different people reacting, because I think a lot of people run experiments, but it's kind of like they're running experiments where it's like, this better work, or I really hope this works. And I've gotten more indifferent about whether or not things work, as I just kind of want to learn from it.
You want to break your employees' brains? Use the line, "We've successfully discovered something that did not work."
Yeah,
I use that all the time, and people are like, "What?"
Yeah. Yeah, they're like, success is if our experiment goes the way we expected it to. And you're like, no, success is that you ran the experiment and you learned and you got closer to understanding the way the world works.
Yeah, strong beliefs held loosely. I will fight to the death over something I believe until I'm proven wrong. I'm like, okay, well, I don't care anymore. It's like, I was wrong. Next thing.
Yeah. So one of the things that we've run into this year is we're an omni-channel brand. There's just so much data that we're trying to aggregate. And this is, Amazon, it's Target, it's the website. We're trying to think about how advertising really impacts people's behaviors across a bunch of different channels. And we're starting to expand internationally. And it's just like that grows everything by an order of magnitude, the number of places that we have to go get data. And I was thinking about, Jason, you've got just that exact problem. You guys are further down the road than we are. You've got operations going on basically globally at this point. You got all these sources of data. How in the world are you organizing all that data?
Yeah, great point. It is incredibly complex. And if you think about our business, cash flow is like the light, is the blood of the system, the blood flow, and the data is the nervous system. And for a really long time, I was saying to myself, we're just leaving money on the table because we don't have our data in the right place, or we don't understand our data to make good decisions. I'm 100% about making data-oriented decisions. So the key for us, we partnered with Saras Analytics to build out our data warehouse, and we continue to knock off new projects within it, and starting from just understanding where all our sales are coming from, going into one spot and having a dashboard for that, and then loading in all of our marketing metrics to look at the time series of that over time. And then eventually we can actually help, it will really aid our forecasting. So having all that data and partnering with a great business like Saras has been a big win for us, for sure.
Jason, what, like with the team though, is everybody looking at this stuff? Is it just you? Like, what's the impact been? Like, how broad in the business?
Yeah, it's been really broad actually, and it's one of those things where you don't know what you need until you see it. And I was pushing. This was actually my project, data warehouse, because as a banker, I actually did a lot in the tech space, and I knew a lot of data warehouse companies. And I just saw we have all these customers, we have all these metrics, and I was like, this is going to help our business. We need to get this information all in one place, have it be robust, have it be timely. And then I actually got all of the leadership at the company to really buy into this project and use it. And for example, our growth team are heavily using this data now. So our growth team is using it, our ops team is using it, and the C-suite is using it to get, really our hands on the metrics that we need.
It seems like having a really good grasp of your data is not just important for running the business. If you ever want to sell your business, it's very important. And that's the kind of thing that leads to multiple expansion. But one of the things that we've seen, Jason, as we start to build, I would say, our data infrastructure, it can get pretty expensive pretty quickly, especially if you're piecing together several different software solutions.
Yeah. Well, look, I think, first of all, this is an investment that, once you're, say, 10 million in revenue, you really need to think seriously, because a lot of times when people look at investment in technology, they're thinking about what it's going to cost, but they don't think about the return on that investment and like, just the incrementality that comes from it, the incremental sales that come from it. I think they outweigh the cost here. And I think centralizing on one system and having one team do it, I think is really, at the end of the day, going to be more efficient. And like this is something that I wouldn't want to build on my own. I would go to an expert and one firm and have them do it. And that's we looked around a lot, and we thought that the only one that had the understanding of our space at a detailed level and really understanding e-com, that was Saras, and that's why we went with them.
It's interesting the way that we vet softwares at our company. I rely really heavily on the recommendations of people like the three of you. I know that we lean on other entrepreneurs. Saras is something that, for example, Ben from True Classic is using it. And those recommendations carry a lot of weight for me when a Jason Panzer says, hey, we're using this and we're using this at scale. And I think all of us have found that to be a really helpful way of filtering through the noise and the countless options is who are other true operators using and using successfully in the market.
But so Evan, so it's the end of 2022, 2023. I remember the All-In pod, Chamath being like, there's a recession coming. Like we are in war. I know the El Caterina team well. I think they're fantastic. I know the Oddity team well. So you talk to the guy from Oddity, and he's like, hey, come join us. And you're excited by that. You're like, yeah, I believe in this because nobody thinks I can sell stuff, but this guy thinks I can. So how does that conversation go? How long does the negotiation take? And are they public at the time?
They weren't public. We got acquired like 2 months before they went public. The first thing Iran said to me, actually he said it like the first thing twice, was I never hire a single person from beauty for this company. He said, like, this is the secret sauce. Is like, I don't believe you need to know like insider things to disrupt things. And I was like, wow, how crazily different this guy thinks than every one of my investors who's like, you need to find someone from beauty, otherwise you're going to die. And, it was interesting. He was like, I hire really smart people and they do really hard things. And most of the time it doesn't work, but sometimes it works. And I was like, how refreshing. Because nobody in venture capital thinks that, because they're all like, you need to like bring in the people from L'Oreal or like the people from Estee Lauder, or otherwise you're not going to figure it out. And I was like, I don't know, like we're selling product online. It doesn't feel like they really know how to sell product online. And it was great. Like seeing that team and seeing them be successful in such an untraditional way was amazing. And I was like, I want to be a part of this, and I want to really help build something that proves people wrong. That was a huge thing for me. We started talking probably end of 2022. End of 2022, and the deal like closed in May of 2023. But we basically like knew everything was good in like March. So it takes a while to get all the paperwork done, but it was pretty solid.
Okay, so Oddity. If you guys don't know Oddity went public. They're worth about $2 billion. They have one really popular brand called Il Maquillage, which is like probably the first science-backed beauty brand, and they have a second brand called Spoiled Child. What happened to your brand? Did they roll it into one of those? Did they just take the tech, or what happened?
Yeah, so they were basically like, your brand is very tiny, and it's probably worth more time if we actually build out the R&D division and slowly shut down the brand. So to be fair, like both of those brands over $100 million a year, and it made sense.
Yeah. Cool, man. I mean, that's probably the best outcome, because then you could be like, hey, I'm the science guy. I'm here to do science. Like, let's not look at my $12 million in revenue. And yeah, so their whole thesis, like even the stock name is Oddity Tech, right? Like they're really trying to sell this tech angle of beauty. They were one of the first brands to be like, oh, we're science backed in everything we do. And you're there for a year or two, and then you decide you get the itch, you're going to go do another science-backed brand, right? So what are you doing now, Evan?
Yeah, so I'm selling cat sprays. So are you guys allergic? I'll leave with that. Are you guys allergic to cats, dogs, dust?
Oh man, my wife. Okay, I'm listening, because my wife, she can walk into a house and with no context, she can know in 3 seconds if there's a cat in that house. It's
really
amazing. Her face just like, oh, dude. It's amazing how allergic she is.
Wow.
It's allergies are crazy.
Because I have no allergies. I didn't know that people could get this allergic, but yeah, it's wild.
So my wife's also allergic to our cat, we love our cat, and we did not know she was allergic when we got the cat. Also, like, okay, so this is the real story. Is like, it was COVID. This was like 4 years ago. My wife is like, hey, I'm like working by myself at home. Like, I'd love to get an animal. And she said that, and I'm a man of action. So I Google searched like British short hair kittens near me. And then they were like, there's one left. And so I literally like instantly bought it.
You impulse bought a British short hair cat. That's amazing.
And her name's Meow Meow. She's super cute. We picked her up and my wife just was dying. And I was like, what's going on? We tried a lot of stuff. And like, it just doesn't work that well, right? So if she's like a 7 out of 10 on allergy scale, it gets you to like a 5 out of 10. She was taking the pills and all that stuff. And it just, none of it worked that well. And so I was looking at this and I was like, this can't be that hard, right? Like, what's causing these allergies? And it turns out like, it's really crazy. So your immune system has this entire like complicated system to recognize intruders into your body. And so like if bacteria comes, it's like, get it out of me. And if you think of what allergies are, right? The sneezing, stuffy nose, that's basically your immune system being like, get it out of my body. And so we found out that like the allergies are basically your body mistakenly recognizing a protein that an organism emits, like a cat allergen, right? As a foreign body that is a toxin. And so then your body's like, oh my God, it's freaking out. Like, this thing's going to kill you. Get it out of my body. So that's allergies, right? So the puffiness, all of this stuff is trying to get it out. And normally, like, if you were developing a drug for this, right? And this is your fist is the allergen. It's only a fraction of that allergen that causes the issue. So your body only sees like the ring area, like the ring on the hand, as an issue, and it freaks out. So if I'm developing a drug, right, what I normally do is I take something and I cover it up. And then your body doesn't see it anymore, so your body doesn't overreact, and so you're free of symptoms. And so what we do is we develop a special kind of binding protein that binds to this thing. We mass produce it, and then we sell it in the form of like sprays. You can spray around your house. You can't spray it on the cat because the cat will like murder you. But if you could, then it'd be great. And we sell it in like cat food toppers, like a little salt shaker thing that you can feed to the cat to help with allergies. And it was.
So do you apply it? Like if my wife was going to go into a place that had a cat, what would she do? She just spray this on herself? What?
She can breathe it in a little bit like cologne, but we usually tell people like spray the surrounding area, like when you're walking in.
So you're spraying like your furniture, your carpets, like anywhere where the cat's going to leave like its goodies,
Yeah,
whatever.
that's right.
Like, is it a specific? Like, did you find like one thing that's what triggering like most allergens, and then you just went after that?
Yeah. So there's one major allergen for cats. It's just one protein. It's crazy. And so we have something that specifically neutralizes that. That's why it's safe, right? So like you don't want something that neutralizes everything. People have been selling like bleach to deal with allergens for a long time. Like that's clearly going to hurt you, right? So our thing only targets that one thing. And we're launching dog and dust next year. And dogs, there's 2 major allergens, and dust, there's 2 major allergens. It's actually to the dust mites. So for each one, we have to discover a new thing that can neutralize it.
So instead of drugging the environment, you're drugging so instead of drugging the person, you're drugging the environment.
That's
like
right,
you didn't develop a drug.
We won't say that out loud, but like, it's kind of
Yeah, Matt's like, we're just drugging everybody. We're going to drug your kids. We're going to drug.
It's marketer.
Yeah. So Evan, super interesting category. You're just like, hey, I do science. I find stuff. I'm going to sell it. I did beauty. I helped this beauty company do shit. Now I'm doing this other thing. Let's talk about the actual economics of. Well, first, you said your wife's a 7. If she takes all the pills, she gets to a 5. What does this bring her to? With no pills, just like if she just sprayed this into a room.
I want to say like 2 or 3. So it's
damn.
Wow.
Yeah. It's
if you pair it with the pills,
then like 0.
Nice.
Yeah. So it's because it's a completely different mechanism, right? And the way that the thing works, it doesn't neutralize everything in an area. It can only neutralize like a portion of it, and so it brings you down to that low level.
That's awesome.
Okay, let's take a quick break and let's talk Northbeam and why I think all of us on the show use Northbeam and most of our network uses Northbeam. There's a reason we like it. And the reason is this. When you start to scale up your brand, you're inevitably going to start to diversify channels. And click-based channels, they're all going to tell you that they're doing great. We like Northbeam. So Pila, Lomi, like Sean likes it. Everybody likes Northbeam because it gives us a single source of truth. We can actually see each channel and how they're contributing to the overall channel mix. This is the whole multi-touch attribution thing. In my view, I think Northbeam is the best in class at this. That's why we're there. It's why we stay there. I just trust their data. And since ad platforms have kind of gone to this like less than 30-day max attribution window, I like seeing things over longer periods of time because customers don't make all their purchasing decisions on the day that they see your ad. They might come back 3 months from now and purchase. So I think every single brand that's spending across multiple channels at scale should at least give Northbeam a consideration. And if you want to learn more about it, they've got a cool newsletter. Just go sign up for their newsletter. They'll teach you all about this stuff over time, and then you can make your decision that way. Anyway, check Northbeam out.
Okay, so awesome category. Obviously, no one else is doing this. Let's talk about the actual economics of the business. So one, I love that like it's a spray that people have to buy more of, right? Like if you're allergic and you choose to have a cat, that's like an 18-year problem. You know what I mean? Like that cat's not going anywhere. You're not getting better. So you're probably going to buy this all of the time. So subscription makes a ton of sense. Also, I would charge a ton of money for this. You're the only thing on the market solving this issue, right? Like
there's one more product from Purina that works similarly to what we're doing.
Okay.
They're selling really well though. They're like fourth year on the market. They're very
How do you figure out TAM for this?
Yeah.
Because like if you're allergic to a cat, you just don't buy one. I thought that's how people worked. But no, like there's people who are allergic to cats that buy them and suffer.
It's like a lot of people.
Come on.
You'd be surprised. I mean, we have people that are like deathly allergic and are like, hey, I help rehome cats at the shelter, and I have like 8 cats in my home. And I'm literally reading these reviews, and I'm like, what are you doing? Like, why are you doing this to yourself?
What kind of a sadist are you? Surrounding yourself with something that's slowly killing your body?
Yeah, they're buying the product, so I'm not going to like say that to them. But I'm like, I don't know, a questionable life choice at some point.
Yeah, Evan's like, buy more cats. You'll need more spray.
Sponsoring the SPCA.
You get a free cat with every bottle.
Dude, it's probably like half of people, because you have to think, cats and humans lived together for 20,000 years, but in a way different way than we live together now. Like cats would live like outside in your barn, killing all your mice or whatever. We didn't have like air-conditioned homes where the cat just was like in charge, basically. So I would think it's probably 30% of cat owners need this. Dogs are probably a little bit different. We've been together a lot longer, but yeah, man. So let's talk about just the economics. If I want to get into your program, how much do I have to spend?
First purchase is around $66, and then for each recurring purchase around $52. And
how often are people buying?
It's once every like 6 weeks. So
wow,
it's kind of a weird cadence. Yeah.
And can we add fragrance to it? I mean, I think
yeah.
Go ahead.
Yeah, I mean, we do add fragrance to it, and it's actually been a complaint of people, and I completely understand the complaint. The reason we add fragrance is because the technology itself is a protein, and like you guys have taken protein powder before, that smell of protein powder. It smells like that naturally, right? And like people don't want to spray that into their home, so we add a little bit of fragrance to it to cover up for the smell.
So I think you get people paying more money for the fragrance. And the next thing I think is like, let's get infusers going. Like, let's get an actual like, instead of having to physically spray it, it's like you plug this thing in and it's just all day a little tiny
like the essential
pump.
oils type environment, right?
Yeah. There's a couple of products for that to like calm the cat down, and we've been looking into it, and we're hopefully going to launch something next year on that.
Hell yeah, dude!
Wow.
It's a great idea because people love their fucking pets, and then you're tackling it from a new angle.
I'm just sort of like, hang on, how often do you got to spray this stuff in the house?
It's like once every couple of days because the protein's not every couple of days. Yeah.
I was gonna say, dude, all the fucking time because these people are sick. Like they should get rid of their cat.
Well, I guess I'm wondering too, like Evan, how much of the buyers of this do you know are they cat owners? So the people who own it, are they buying it because they're not the ones allergic to it, but they have guests that come over, right? So it's like, I'm buying it because I have people in my house and I don't want them to suffer, or are they buying it because like they're just a sadist and they buy cats and even though they're suffering?
It's about half people that have cats and are allergic, and half other reasons, like family or friends visiting and other things. Yeah.
Yeah. Then the market's huge for sure. Like that's insane.
Every house in America should just have it. If you have a cat, and you have someone coming over, be like, "Oh, we have a great spray that like deals with it," right? Like if I'm having Mike's wife over for dinner and I have a cat, like I should have this just to be a nice person, right? But the flip side is every kid on earth wants a cat, and usually somebody in the family is allergic, and sometimes the kid wins and they get the cat anyway. Like I've seen that play out like 100 times. Mike, I bet your kids are like, "Can we get a cat? Can we get a cat?" Like all the time.
Well, my kids are like, "Can we get a dog?"
Is.
I have not shared this for Christmas this year, like 4 or 5 days ago. We literally, the kids got home from their last day of school and they opened up a present that had a dog in it. We've got a puppy.
Gosh.
Hold on. In fact, I might introduce him to the pod here in a second. He's awesome. But yes, so pets were very much top of mind going into this Christmas for our family. It's interesting. I wonder almost like, Evan, if there's like a cocktail here where like I could get a diffuser that, puts this in the air that counteracts dust and dogs and cats and, many of the common allergens. Because my wife is somebody who really struggles with allergies. They can just totally knock her out. So if there was a product where it's like, hey, I can plug this thing in and it's putting that out in the air that's making everything more bearable, man. Like you said, your pricing power and the loyalty on a subscription like that would be amazing.
Yeah. The problem with because I think the diffuser is also a great idea. That's I think I'm pitching that. The spray, you could actually take it to so many different affected areas where like the diffuser has to stay local, right? It's going to have like a way less like effective area. But dude, a 3-pack I think is a great idea. Like a diffuser with 3 little like ink cartridges you plug in and it just like takes care of everything. You could see people getting 4 of them throughout their house. You know what I mean? And then they could just set it and forget it. You build an app that sends them push notifications. Evan, nice. I like it. What's the plan? How long have you been doing it? How long have you been in market? How many are you selling?
We've been in market since April around. And this month we'll do like 500K of revenue. So
good for you.
Yeah, it's okay. I mean, it's been interesting scaling into the election. And then, Facebook went down a couple weeks and it was kind of weird. It's been weird this month.
It's not weird. It's normal.
I haven't been in the game for 2 years. So I think when we were doing Facebook, it was a lot more consistent in 2022. They've gotten a little bit inconsistent for
things got harder. Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, dude, undoubtedly, this year has been the worst for Facebook. So I think you launching in April, you dodged Q1, which was really bad, but it hasn't been a great year for Facebook. But also, I think with this business, you'll find Q1's probably your biggest period, right? Spring cleaning, New Year, New You, just people like Mike buying a puppy for Christmas, getting a cat for Christmas, and then discovering that they have allergies. Yeah. I think Q1 will just totally rip for you. And dude, 500K in less than a year is amazing. That's an amazing outcome.
Thank you.
If you send SMS messages, I don't actually know why you're not using Postscript. My view is simple. I just don't think you should be gambling with SMS. Every single message that you sent out should be the best message that you can send out. It's a high ROI channel, so you should take the best shot you can possibly take. There's a reason why we're all with Postscript. They help us take the best quality shots. I have used 4 different SMS platforms over the years, and it feels like I'm just not gambling with Postscript. They are always leading edge in the latest features. They're even going to be early on this AI stuff. I honestly don't have a good reason why you shouldn't at least consider them for your SMS marketing. Postscript is just a great platform. Take a look.
So you've quickly built, scaled, sold brands. Are you in this? Oh, damn, Mike with the puppy. What's up, Mike?
Oh my God.
All right, guys, this is Biscuit. Biscuit is, hey, I know, bud. Biscuit is awesome, basically. This dog, if there's one downside to this dog, it's that he almost immediately started following me everywhere, and he's pretty small. And so, I accidentally kicked him a couple of times while I was walking because he just so anyway, he's awesome. He loves snuggles. I just wanted to say, biscuits everywhere are going to help make Evan a very successul man. There we go.
Thanks,
All
Biscuit.
Right.
Yeah, dude. Thank you, Biscuit. But yeah, I mean, so you've built, scaled, sold brands. I mean, what's the playbook for this one? How big do you want to get it, or are people already sniffing around trying to buy you?
I'd prefer never to sell a company again. I'll say that. It's interesting. Like I get pretty attached as a person, and like Mike was saying about relationships. I'm a romantic, and I get very, very attached to businesses, and it felt kind of bad shutting down the brand, and I just don't want to do that again. And also, I feel like we were saying, like for different kinds of products, it does require a different type of team to sell the product, and for the team to kind of understand different unit economics, and to really understand like how to do the marketing for the product. And I just kind of feel like if we sell it, like the next people won't have as good of a team take over. So I really want to be running this forever. My focus is, how do I do that? Right? Obviously, you guys have already done it. I've never done that. And my first business, I made a ton of mistakes for people. Even my priority. So I tell my team, like, we're scaling this business. We're doing a lot of work, but my priority is now just training people in the company, because these last 2 years I've talked to hundreds of CEOs of different brands, and I ask them always, "What's your one biggest regret?" And every CEO says it's airdropping in leadership into roles in the company. And almost every time they're like, "We hired senior leadership from X and just like destroyed the culture of the company." Because like the young people that built the company, they didn't feel like there was up mobility and all that stuff. And so now I'm like, okay, so like, how do we do that? I didn't do that for the first company. It was very much like minimum number of people, all that stuff. How do you really train this team? That's really fun for me. Like I'll make mistakes, but like I was saying, it's the challenge that makes it really exciting.
Yeah. So you said you made a lot of mistakes with your first business. Dude, can't relate. Never made a mistake in my entire life. So no, dude, that's entrepreneurship, man. It's like I make mistakes every single day, and it's just putting blinders on and powering through. Let's talk about this whole concept of just science-backed brands, because I think that is the most interesting outcome. And I think where there's actually a lot of alpha to go is that just like the world of science spends all of their time researching very, very hard problems, right? Like you're doing cancer research, right? About $100 billion has gone into cancer research, and every year it gets slightly better, where you can take literally pennies, fractions of that, and just make protein a little bit better, right? Or make fucking skincare a little bit better. Like taking all of that research and that corpus of knowledge and then just taking it to commercial applications, I think is a really interesting idea. And if you were not in the pet space right now doing what you're doing, what are some other areas you would look to? Is it food? Is it beauty? Is it what?
I think wellness in general, there's been this big, change in how we're thinking, especially with RFK taking over. I think he is very pro like non-drug interventions, so different ways to make people do things. There's been a lot of research now into like things like intermittent fasting, different things that potentially could help rejuvenate the body. I think there's a ton of opportunity there. I think first of all, we don't know that much. And whenever people don't know that much, that means other people don't know that much, which means you can start making mistakes and figure out things before other people. And so I always think that's a great opportunity for you to really just build something. I don't know. There's not a lot of stuff done in consumer in general with any kind of biotech behind it, because most people that know how to do the biotech don't do consumer, and they're afraid of it. Like J&J and Kenvue just split, right? That was them basically openly saying like, we don't want to do this anymore. Like they're just completely separate companies. In addition, like people hate pharma. Like I don't think there's another industry that people hate more than pharmaceuticals. Like, there's all these charts about insulin prices going up and all these things. Like people hate it. And so it's really, really hard for that crowd to really be behind something consumer. So anything, I think, really is a big opportunity there.
I think this is a really big theme because you've got colliding trends. One is we are going into a period of massive deregulation. Like this administration has made it clear they are going to really bring down the level of regulation on getting products to market. Secondly, the tools to become kind of a scientist you don't have to have a PhD. Like there'll be a point where I can do, we just saw O3. O3 was just released, and this is basically, we're now seeing something that's at PhD level. And so even someone who's just very motivated that maybe has no academic background. I don't know, Evan, if you've looked at AlphaFold at all. From my understanding, AlphaFold is, very on topic with what you're doing and is maybe one of the most promising applications of AI around proteins and understanding protein structures. And so those two things are happening. Like you're having this democratization of the ability to do scientific research and modeling and stuff. You're going to see the walls come down on regulation. People already dislike pharma. And it really makes me wonder if a lot of the more life-changing applications are actually going to come through the commercial, less traditional pharmaceutical routes to get to the public. Because I also think like we have this model right now of, okay, well, they come up with something and then it has to go through whatever years and years of trials and testing. But at the rate that things are going to be, the rate we're going to be figuring things out over the next 5 or 10 years, I think that model doesn't really work. Like nobody's going to, if they come out with something that's going to slow down aging, nobody's going to wait for 10 years of trials. Like there's going to be insane demand for that. To me, the aging thing is, I think, the most interesting opportunity in the entire world. Is that I think we're going to fundamentally learn how to biohack the aging process. And when that happens, things are going to get super weird and very different than, like a lot of our priors about the way that life looks and the way that society looks are going to get blown up. But I'm really curious how that comes to market as we start to unravel that. And is that through, is it through entrepreneurs maybe more than, and maybe, honestly, I guess a prediction I might make is I think the most successful entrepreneur of the next 50 years is going to be the person who figures out how to commercialize anti-aging or reversal of aging.
I mean, Brian Johnson's certainly trying.
Yeah.
Right. Well, I guess on that, Mike and Evan, this is definitely a question for you, man. Talk about the product development life cycle and like how long this stuff takes. Because I think people listening are probably hearing this and saying like, okay, but when most people in consumer, when they make a product, they literally just load up Alibaba, modify the existing thing in some way, and then there you go, presto changeo, I've got a product. If you're going this path, which I think is like everybody should at least look at. I mean, okay, number one takeaway from this pod for me is don't go find an influencer to partner with to launch your brand. Find a fucking scientist who can go and make something really cool. Like this is a great idea. But like Evan, hit on the time, like how long did it take you to make the cat spray?
Yeah.
And what is your view on like length of time and investment on the product development side?
Of course. So, the hope for all these products is if you can make an amazing product, you get great repeat, right? Like, because, it might help a little bit with CAC, but realistically, you're going to see it on the repeat. And these products take a long time. So I'm going to make a big spiel for people like you guys and other people listening to podcasts to hire scientists, because I really, really want this to become the next thing. And I can go into why. But okay, so for the cat spray, it took us about 6 months of R&D. So like really finding the thing that could neutralize. It then took us about a year to scale it up. So like when we make the solution, you have to go from like, have you guys seen those big beer brewing like tanks? Like the 30 kiloliter ones. So we go from like the very tiny ones to the very big ones. There are like 8 steps in between to make sure we can do it. And that took about a year. It took about $2 million total to get the product. So it's expensive. Like it's an expensive thing. Those are called proteins, right? So the protein landscape is a lot more expensive because you have to do specific things to make them. The other space, which is interesting, are called small molecules. And so most of the things in beauty products, most of the things in wellness products, most of the things in everything are small molecules. They're small chemical entities. And the difference between those and a protein is proteins, you almost have to use bacteria or yeast to make them in these giant vats. For small molecules, you can use gasoline-derived chemicals to make them. So they're chemical reactions. And so if I were to make a batch and I wanted to make like 100,000 products, it would probably cost me like $100,000 for those 100,000 products for the actual thing. The actual R&D might be a little bit, it might cost you like, one scientist, like half a year, 1 year, maybe some development costs, but it's not as expensive for these small molecules because it's just so much cheaper to manufacture.
What's up, everybody? Welcome a new sponsor to the Operators family. Thank you, Rich Panel, for sponsoring the podcast. Are you fed up with CX Software's unreasonable price hikes? We switched to Rich Panel and cut our costs by 50%. We've been on Rich Panel for over 6 months, all the way through Q4, and over 2,000 brands have now switched over to Rich Panel and their AI first customer service. When we switched, our ticket to order ratio dropped by 47%. So it used to be that like 1 in 3 people who bought from us ended up writing in about something, right? Tell me how cool I am, complain about something, need to return something. They've been able to drop that by 47% because of their AI first solutions. They're solving more tickets. They have an awesome, help desk feature. People are taking care of themselves. And our CSAT score, which is the way we measure success over here, is at 92%. So we've been able to get better reviews, more honest reviews using Rich Panel. Their biggest, most important feature probably is their AI social media manager. It's doing all of my social media management across ads and organic. We were paying separate softwares to do that and separate team members to do that. So we were on one of the big names. They went through an acquisition. They bought themselves back. It was a major pain in the ass, and they just fell behind in terms of being a tool. Rich Panel is better and cheaper than they were. Their transition to Rich Panel was really smooth. We did it pre Black Friday. So I think we started doing it in August or whatever. Other people were waiting. They were really worried about it, but we just decided to jump in and do it. And if you have a horrible contract right now, talk to Rich Panel. They'll work with you to make sure you get better customer service at better prices. So if help desk costs are burning a hole in your pocket, consider this. Switching to Rich Panel can cut your expenses by 30 or maybe 50% overnight, and also reducing tickets. You'll get a better customer experience. And if you don't believe me, just buy something from Rigid.com. Go through the flow, try to return something, talk to an agent, leave comments on my socials. Not my personal ones, just the brand ones. Do that entire flow. Use code Sean for 10% off and just see for yourself, man. I am actively using this tool. And if you like it, you can check it out, or you can talk to somebody from my team and see if they like it. So thank you, Rich Panel. I believe in what you're doing. And if you would have been the cutting edge of AI, e-com brands always talk about this. Like, oh, what can I do with AI? Dude, we're not going to figure it out. Just wait for a big player to come up with a good solution for us, and then we'll jump on the bandwagon. What you need to be doing is making more ads and more products, not be worrying about how you can beat Claude, right? They're going to figure their shit out. You focus on what you do best. Rich Panel is great at customer service. They're great at AI. They're rolling that stuff out. Thank you, Rich Panel. Goodbye.
And then let me make a pitch to hire scientists, because I really want this to be the future. So the reason I'm in this space, and the reason I didn't want to go into pharma, is my dad was in pharma. He was in pharma all his life. I saw him get laid off for random reasons, right? And the way that pharma works is they'll develop a drug, and then they'll basically every time need to put the drug through clinical trials. They'll lay off everybody on the R&D team for that drug. So it's the most insane payoff you could ever imagine. Like, good job, you discovered a drug that might go into patients. We're about to lay you all off. And from a very young age, I was like, I never want to do that shit. Because like, that's crazy. And what a terrible, terrible group of people to work for. Like, just an awful group of people. And, obviously pharma companies do great things because like they cure cancer and stuff. But I just feel like that's what a terrible way to treat people that like their whole lives, they want to make a difference in the world. And so I bet you if one of you guys went and tried to hire like one of these scientists, they would love to work for you guys. Because your only pitch is, I'm going to treat you with respect. And when your product goes to market, I'm not going to lay you off. Like, I'm going to make sure that you can keep working on great things. And scientists would love to work for you. They love the cash flow. They love that you'll be around for a long time.
Yeah. To build on what Evan's saying, just one other thing I would add, and I'd love, Evan, you to evaluate if this is true. My understanding is that the big potential with technology and AI is that the modeling R&D process can go light years faster. So as an example, I was at dinner with the provost of the University of Oklahoma. I think his background is in something biomedical, if I remember right. I can't remember exactly what his specialty was. And he is a very accomplished, in the National Academy type person, has published, I don't know, a bunch, hundreds of things.
Yeah.
And I'm asking him, how has technology impacted things? And he said, basically, the entirety of my academic career has been made obsolete by technology. He's like, everything I've published. And he gave examples of particular things he published that took him 4 months. And he's like, the models can now do it in 4 hours, what it took me 4 months to do. So I think the reason why people are getting excited, and there is evidence out there that this is actually what's happening on the ground, is that before you might have said, hey, it's, these small molecules, we're going to do 6 months of R&D because we have to do a lot of experimentation. Now you can model that out and kind of run scenarios through, artificial intelligence. And by the time you're actually messing around in the real world, you have a really high confidence interval that what you're about to do is going to work. And so maybe it's a month of R&D or, whatever, 2 or 3 attempts at R&D before you're like, hey, this works pretty well. And that's practically, so everything, the AI stuff's just going to condense timelines on a bunch of stuff. You still have to live in the physical world. You still have to have judgment. You still have to have people that are applying this. But a lot of the trial and error that we were having to do in the past gets cut out because the machine can model all that.
Yeah, it's really interesting. Like, so there's a bunch of AI for drug discovery companies out there. And the pitch is like, before you'd have to screen all of these molecules by hand. So like, if I'm trying to cure like heart cancer or something, I make different models of little heart cancer things in petri dishes, in little dishes, and I'm exposing each one to a different chemical. And I'm like, is it helping or is it hurting? Is it helping or is it hurting? Is it helping or is it hurting? And you do that tens of thousands of times, right? And now the computer can do a lot of that. So you can have the computer do a bunch of it. So the time frame is, I would guess, it's probably scaled down R&D for these products from 5 years to about 3 months, like Mike was saying. And you still have to do those 3 months 100% because you have to do safety testing, you have to do all these different things. But that's actually not the exciting part. The exciting part for a consumer is the best part about this entire process is before, if you did 10,000 molecules, you might just get 2 or 3 potential hits. So 2 or 3 things that might work. With AI, you get hundreds of things. And so as a company, you can bias towards safety, you can bias towards the things that you care about, right? So for consumer products, you care about like solubility, things that like dissolve in water well, right? Like dissolve in different things well. And you can really create a better consumer experience with this because you have so many options that you started with because the process is so much more efficient. It's interesting because pharma it doesn't help pharma all that much because pharma doesn't care about those 5 years. Pharma has another 10 years to go for clinical trials, and that's where most drugs fail anyways. So,
how do you think about, sorry, go ahead, John.
Oh, well, I'm going to try to unite these two worlds, what Evan's talking about, what Mike's talking about, because, the most wild thing is watching what happens to pharma stocks, right? Like there's thousands of public pharma companies, and they either go parabolic and end up trading for 100x what they were the day before, or they all go to zero because it's all about these clinical trials. And in a researcher's career, he probably has 10 to 15 attempts to put something through clinical trials. It just takes so long that someone's entire life could be spent with just a bunch of zeros. And what Mike's saying, and what Evan's agreeing on, is that, hey, right now there's going to be a mad rush of awesome things to discover, and it's way easier than ever. But the problem is it doesn't actually help the pharmaceutical industry that much. Like we will get to a better outcome for heart cancer, but that's going to take 10 or 15 years regardless because we're going to make sure it's safe in people. But there's an unregulated world, which is consumer, where you can take these findings and you can make a ton of fucking money by just making better things for people. And look, dude, the outcomes will be smaller because if you cure cancer, you end up getting $100 billion, where if you make a really awesome cat spray, you might get $1 billion, right? So the outcomes are going to be smaller, but they're way faster and it's accessible to all of us. So my pitch to unite the world. Sorry, Val, I'm going to hand it over to you. My pitch to unite the world.
I got a question on this topic though, so go ahead.
Okay, so what Evan is saying is, hey, hire scientists. Evan's thing costs $2 million to make. That is harder and more expensive to make than something off of Alibaba, but his thing is going to be durable, harder to copy, and have real IP, and is a net new thing to the world. He's solving a real problem. So if you have a couple $1 million, right? Everyone listening to this, Mike, you got a couple million, Matt, you got a couple million. For your next project, go to Stanford, go to MIT, go to Harvard, or go to the University of Oklahoma. There's researchers at all these great schools. Find a scientist doing something that you think is interesting and cool and be like, how would you like to make 3 times as much money right off the rip? Because Evan was making $50K. How would you like equity in this program and to build your own future? And they see the work they're doing getting erased by AI, and they're like, oh, I'm just going to be fucking filing papers waiting for the FDA to approve my thing. No, let's go do this thing together in a world where you can actually make money. So that's my pitch. Matt, what's up with you?
Well, I just want to, because you're making a really good point. I just want to throw out an opportunity vector that most people don't hear. Universities are full of smart people that are coming up with things that have no idea how to commercialize them. And you can make a ton of money and be very successful just going and partnering with universities and PhDs at universities and helping them figure out how to bring their stuff to market. OU has an entire department that's focused on trying to match people to entrepreneurs. This is kind of like the business founder, technical founder idea that like there are lots of people with lots of great ideas. Like I get approached with things, everything from like nanoparticles to other stuff, most of which I know nothing about, and probably am not the right partner. But everybody who's listening to this, if you have capital to invest, or if you're the type of person that can help enable bringing something new and innovative to market, there's a lot of great stuff that's just kind of gathering dust because frankly, the people who discovered it don't know how to commercialize it.
100%, dude. Like, I guess we've done both of our brands, Lomi and Pila, have worked with the University of British Columbia here in the Okanagan because they have a really good ag program here. So like we've got an insane students doing really cool stuff with all, like most of it's in material science, but a lot of it's in just straight up agriculture because like the valley I live in, we grow a lot of food here. So the university is like naturally just aligned with that. So like both of our companies have benefited from working with PhD students and just like the school programs, like 100%. So yeah, I think Mike, that's a great call out. Like people should go and do that work. I guess the question I had though, Sean, on your topic, dude, and what Mike is hitting on is like, Evan, how do you think about claims then? So like in consumer, we are less regulated, but I've been sued a number of times, not sued, I guess, I don't actually know if it's called sued, but in the US,
Yeah, you get
certain DAs in certain states, Sean, I'm looking at yours, love to tag brands.
Well, and this is especially relevant because the meta changes that are coming
100%, man. So
advertising.
We are less regulated, but we still have to think about this. So like, Evan, can you talk about how you guys approach claims?
Yeah, sure. I mean, 100% work with the FDA and try to make sure that you are above board on everything. So there are a couple different paths for getting things approved or like compliant with the FDA. The first path is a cosmetic, so anything on the outside of the body or doesn't go into the body, or if it doesn't do anything to your body and it only removes toxins, can be considered a cosmetic. And for that, you don't actually have to go through the FDA. You just have to file with something called INCI. It's a international council, and you'll get a name for the thing, and you'll be able to sell it. Definitely do safety trials. So like if you work with any scientist, they'll know what kind of safety testing to do. Like make sure your thing is safe because that'll blow you up faster than anything that you can ever imagine. But there are a suite of safety tests you can do to make sure that, always err on the safe side and get rid of anything that could potentially be harmful. Then for anything ingestible, you can go through something called new dietary ingredient or medical food. There's a bunch of different things where the FDA has something that's not the traditional IND process for a drug. So there are other ways to get things through to make, that don't take 10 years. They're like $1 million and like 1 year instead. But there's a lot of ways to be compliant, and it should be very, very doable for a company that can spend a couple $1 million on R&D. I will add one more point to all of this, which is the pharma companies actually almost never collaborate directly with universities. And the reason for that is they actually do arbitrage where they allow the government to pay the universities to do R&D. And then for those R&D projects to then spin out into small biotechs, and they'll directly buy the biotechs that work. The reason for that is they basically save all the upfront R&D costs. So because the work was done at a university and the US government or some government funded it, you don't pay for that. And so you only really pay the university, and the university basically got free money. So it's super, super cheap to do these collaboration deals. It's a great arbitrage opportunity for anybody that's going to look at those schools.
I mean, I will say like the one thing that stands out though with that, with this whole conversation about like universities and scientists is for entrepreneurs, it's like, how do you identify the type of scientists who can actually see that like, oh, the use of this is not a drug, it's a cat spray. Like bridging that gap is not common, I don't think. Right.
Yeah, Matt,
like that seems like that's a very rare thing.
Yeah. So a lot of the scientists you're going to talk to are going to have the tism, and they're going to be like the nanotubes. They're like, we have to use this for everything. And it's like, okay, that's not what we're doing. You have to find someone who understands that we're lowering our ambitions to have a higher chance of success. Right. So it's like, that's, you have to have that conversation and that trade-off where it's like, hey, dude, we're not going to make a clinical trial drug that's going to save everyone's lives. We're going to make a cat spray that makes people's lives a little bit better. And the chance of success at that, 99%. We are for sure going to get it to market. We're for sure going to launch it. It's going to be awesome. If you do the other thing, we don't know if AI is going to ruin your life. And good luck if it works in 10 years. You know what I mean? Like there's so many, because the thing about like whoever cures cancer, if you're slightly worse at curing cancer, it's a 0. It's like you have to be the best at curing cancer, where our cat spray, people are going to buy a lot of shit and try a lot of shit. So it's like having the conversation about lowering ambition to increase chance of success, and the outcome's still great. And these people are not that money motivated. If they're money motivated, why didn't they go into banking, right? They want to see something. They want to see the world get better. And you just got to convince them that like, this is the best way to see action right now. So that's my pitch. Evan, do you agree or disagree?
100% agree. I tell people all the time, like scientists are the weirdest people because most of them decided to take way less money to work on something really, really niche. And so you don't get them by paying them a ton of money. You get them by making them feel like they make a real impact on the world. 100%, like what you said.
Awesome. Well, dude, we're going to wrap the app. We've been here an hour. Evan, you're welcome to come on whenever. Dude, give us the plug. 1,000 people listening to this have cat problems right now. Where can I buy it?
You can buy it at packagen.com, PACAGEN.com. Thank you guys so much.
I already bought some on this episode. I made a
ROI
purchase.
is infinite.
That's right. That's right. And I got a post-purchase survey, and surprisingly, there was no like podcast guest line to be able to attribute it to. But
I don't do a lot of these. This is one of my favorite pods, so I jumped on the opportunity immediately.
Dude, you can come on whenever. I think it's a great story. You started a brand, you sold a brand, the brand went public. Now you're spun out doing your own thing. Hope you're fucking changing the world. Promo code operators will get you 8 years free of this cat spray. All right, guys. I'll talk to you later.
Thank you so much.
Clickable.
Thank you.
See you, Evan.
Well, you made it to the end. You are now a true friend of the operators. Some other friends of the operators: Northbeam, Fulfill, Postscript, Saras, Rich Panel. 5 softwares, 5 sponsors, 5 softwares I actually use and pay for, and I was using and pay for before they started paying us for the podcast. Thank you for sponsoring the podcast, all 5 of you guys. Thank you for making it to the end. Thanks for being here. Talk to you later.